Dave Roberts, manager of the Dodgers, said that they were going to ruin baseball, and they did. Or did they?
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, the show where we talk nothing but the D-backs Monday through Friday. And thank you so much for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every single day. I am your host, Dane Biggs. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. You guys, baseball's broken, right? Well, yeah, kinda. I mean, nothing's perfect. And baseball, even God's favorite sport on the planet, the only game we truly play in heaven, and America's pastime, the greatest sport of all time, it's not perfect. And there's a lot of problems with it, and those problems need to be addressed. And the Dodgers winning the World Series, which, by the way, I'm going to put this out there right now. It was a very good series. It was a very good postseason. Everything looked really cool. However much of the World Series you watched, it was a fantastic World Series. I mean, it was one for the history books. It was one for the regular books. Like it was like a story time. Like, you couldn't have written it any better, except you should have had the Blue Jays one. But other than that, I mean, it was a wonderful series, and it was a game of inches so many times. The issue I have with the Dodgers winning the World Series, other than the fact that I'm a Diamondbacks fan, is that it wasn't a Cinderella story. It wasn't a story of wild cards. It wasn't a story of underdogs. It wasn't a story of coming together and believing in yourselves and all that kind of stuff. I think Derek Jeter said it really well when he said, if the Dodgers don't win the World Series, it's a total failure. And the Dodgers are probably one of the only teams you can really say that about, because the Dodgers have freaking everything. Like, they had, I don't have the number in front of me right now, but in Game 7, they had a $700 million pitcher. They had a $300 million pitcher. They had a $180 million pitcher. They had how many millions of dollars, billions of dollars playing in Game 7 alone to barely beat the team that they did. And it's not a matter of wow, that's crazy, they scrapped together and they did it and they're awesome, they believed in each other and they believed in themselves and they came out on top. Oh, what an amazing story. No, they had to win. If they didn't win this year and last year, they would have been an absolute joke. The only thing that comes close, and it's not even really the same thing, but it comes close, is the New York Mets, who are the second biggest spenders over the last 10 years. And they've only made it to the playoffs, 3 times in the last 10 years, something like that. And they didn't even make the playoffs this year, even though they had the biggest, on paper, payroll. But anyway, I want to talk about how baseball is currently broken. I don't want to make it sound like I'm like, oh, the whole sport's ruined, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. It's not. We're close to having it perfect, but it's not. We have a handful of things we need to address. So how are we going to fix those things? And then finally, we're going to talk about the Gold Gloves, which were announced yesterday, to end things off on another very happy note for Diamondbacks fans. So what are the problems that we're seeing in baseball right now? Well, for one, the ghost runner and extra innings is stupid. Get rid of that. That's first and foremost. Second of all, second of all, the problem is that high market teams are able to outspend small market teams and sign more of these high worth players. And a big counter argument to that I hear all the time is like, well, there are these billionaires and they're putting in money It's an investment and they're getting money back. It's just a business transaction. And you're right, it is a business transaction, but you're talking about Coca-Cola going up against the mom and pop shop down the street. Obviously that's a hyperbole, but there is a if somebody were to invest $100 million into a business right now, but they don't have the market, they don't have the product, they don't have the infrastructure, it's going to be wasted and they're going to be $100 million in debt. But you have a $100 billion company make a $100 million investment, that's nothing, that's chump change, you know. And even if that fails, which it probably won't because they're a good and successful business, they know what they're doing, it'll probably make them a ton of money. Even if it does fail, though, they'll be fine. If Shohei Ohtani loses both of his legs in this offseason, the Dodgers aren't going out of business, even though they spent a crazy amount of money on him. However, if a team like the Marlins or the Diamondbacks or the Mariners or somebody else did, yeah, they'd be toast. They'd be asking for bailout money from MLB. So to say, well, the Dodgers just play, they just invested their money. You should invest. The Rockies should invest their money too. Yeah, the Rockies definitely should. You're right, but they just don't have the capabilities to do that. They don't have the capabilities to sign a Shohei Ohtani. And then the other thing is the Dodgers didn't just sign Shohei Ohtani. They have Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts. They have Yamamoto. They have Sasaki. They have Blake Snell. They have, I mean, you literally could just keep going with their list of players that they've signed because money is no object for them because they did business right. They've done as far as the business side of things goes, they're doing it all right. And they are in a big market and they're taking advantage of that. There are other teams in big markets that are not doing a very good job. Like right next door, they sell nearly just as many tickets as the Dodgers do as the Angels. And they don't spend their money. Like they make a ton of money. They're not putting it into payroll and they're not making it to the playoffs like ever. When was the last time they made it to the playoffs? In the last 10 years, I have the list right here. In the last 10 years, guess what? They've made the playoffs exactly 0 times. So the Dodgers, just because they have money, doesn't guarantee success. So I'm not saying that. That would be ridiculous. And I'm also not saying that not having money, being in a small market team, guarantees no success. So, for example, let's look at the playoff teams from this playoff year. The Dodgers, in the last 10 years, have made the playoffs 10 times. And they have the number one payroll over that course of 10 years. They didn't have the number one payroll every single year, but they have just had the most, but they've always been in the top 5. Toronto, who has the number 5 payroll, they made the last 4 out of 10. But if you look at Toronto, so you're like, okay, well, they're they have the 5th highest payroll. They only made it 4 out of 10 times. Yeah, but if you look over the last 7 years, in 2019, they had the 21st highest payroll, so one of the lowest. They didn't make the playoffs. In 2020, they had the 19th, so they're going up a little bit, and they made the wild card. And then the next year, they had the 12th highest, and they missed the playoffs. And then the next year, they had the 11th highest, and they made the wild card. Then the 9th made the wild card. 9th again, missed the wild card. And then 5th, they won the division. And so you see there is a correlation there. The higher the payroll, the more often they make the playoffs. But then you have teams like the Brewers, who this year were the best team in baseball. They had the 22nd highest payroll. They had the lowest payroll out of any playoff team. Oh, sorry, that's not correct. Actually, they had the second the second lowest, but they've made the playoffs 7 out of 10 times. And it's not like, oh, well, they used to have a high payroll and it's lower. No, the last handful of years, they were the 22nd, 21st, 18th, 19th, 19th, 23rd. Like, so they're consistently on the bottom. And they're in Milwaukee, which I wonder, I didn't look into that one, but I wonder how big their market is. I don't imagine it's very high. So, and then you have like the Mariners, they're 15th this year in payroll, but they've only made it 2 out of 10 times. This year is a pretty high year for them. The Phillies, they're number 4 in payroll, and they've made the playoffs the last 4 seasons in a row. And if you look at their last handful of seasons, they made the playoffs with the fourth highest payroll. They made the playoffs with the fifth highest, then the fifth highest, then the fourth highest. So the fourth and fifth highest payroll in all of baseball, they made it every single year. And then the years that they didn't, they had the fifth highest, eighth highest, 10th, and then 23rd, 22nd. So they used to be at the bottom of the payroll totem pole until they started to spend money and they started to put a lot of money into payroll. The 10th, 8th, 5th, they didn't make the playoffs any of those years, but then after that they cracked it and they started making the playoffs every year. So, and we could go through this team by team if we wanted to. We don't really want to. But the lesson here is the same. It's a high payroll doesn't guarantee that you win a World Series. It doesn't even guarantee that you make it to the playoffs. I mean, you look at Houston, you look at Atlanta, they had top 10. They were in the top 10. They didn't make it. You look at the Mets, they didn't make it. They had the highest on paper payroll, second highest if you factor in all the deferred payments and everything. They didn't make the playoffs. But these teams, I mean, the Astros, who had the sixth highest payroll this year and consistently have a very high payroll, they've made the playoffs 9 out of 10 seasons. The Braves, half of that, 5 out of 10 seasons. So a high payroll gets you into the playoffs more often. The Yankees, 8 out of 10 times. But then there are outliers. I will admit, there's the Brewers, there's the other team, the Guardians, who were 25th this year. They make it. I mean, the Guardians have made it 6 out of the last 10 years. So it's not. That's not the final thing, but having a high payroll 100% increases your ability to make it to the postseason regularly. And so if the Dodgers make the postseason 10 years out of 10 years, they're going to win the World Series 3 of those times, And so, I mean, if the Diamondbacks made the postseason 10 times in a row, they would have won the World Series at least 3 times, So if any team did. So that's my argument there. Unless you're the Yankees, of course. Which Yankees fans, I don't like the Yankees very much, but I do feel you. I do. So let's also look at teams that don't make it very often. Over the last 10 years, the Pirates and the Angels have not made the playoffs once. Now, the Angels we already talked about. The Pirates, they have the 27th. They're ranked 27th in payroll. They don't pay their guys very much. And this highlights another problem. There are a lot of teams that do not pay their guys very much. Only making it once in the last 10 years, you have the Orioles, you have the Reds, you have the White Sox, you have the Royals, all of them hovering between 16th and 28th in payroll. The highest on this list, so then there's those who have made it twice, which is the Rangers, the Giants, the Marlins, the Rockies, the Diamondbacks, the Mariners, and the Tigers. Out of all these teams, the highest payroll this last season was the Rangers at 7th. So they missed the playoffs 2 years in a row, but they did win the World Series 3 years ago. But their payroll is at $226 million. Like, it's barely at the luxury tax line. It's $226 million to the Dodgers, what, 549 million after the luxury tax. That's insane that it's such a different number. And they're they're in the top 10 and they don't even come close. They're not even close to halfway to the Dodgers payroll. And this list of teams that hardly ever make it, they're the ones that are just right there in the middle. They make it every once in a while, but they're your under 15th. I mean, the Diamondbacks are the highest, one of the next highest, and they're at 14th in payroll. The rest of these 15th, 17th, 21st, 30th, 18th, 23rd, 28th, 27th. I mean, you have average payroll, which these teams aren't big market teams except for maybe the Angels, but we don't need to worry about the Angels. That's their own beast, and I don't want to talk about that. That's not my, what's the phrase? Not my circus, not my monkeys, whatever. Maybe the Giants. They have the 13th highest payroll, I suppose. But you have these teams that just there's no way they could ever reach Dodgers level of payroll, because even if they do crack the top 10, they're still not even close to halfway. And that's another sign of just these great players. They have these amazing years on their respective teams, and then when it's time for them to hit free agency, they get signed by one of the big 3 or 4 teams, and they can sign as many of those types of players as they want because there's no salary cap, and because the luxury tax is just another expense that they're fine with paying. They're like, yeah, I'll pay that $100 million extra dollars. Who cares? We're going to win a World Series. The Diamondbacks, and then the other thing is the difference in market size limits so many of these teams. Like I've been saying, for example, in 2024, the Diamondbacks they made $328 million in revenue. And about 70% of that went into payroll, which is a high number. They were one of the higher teams to spend. They were the 5th highest in payroll to revenue percentage, or 2/3 went to payroll. The Dodgers spent $550 million in 2025. That was what their payroll was. Like, the Diamondbacks, even if they wanted to, they couldn't. They just don't have that. And the Diamondbacks are not the poorest team out there, and and they're not the smallest market, and they don't have the smallest payroll. They're pretty right there in the middle as far as all those metrics go, and they just don't even come close. So how do we fix all this? Well, I have a few ideas. I'd love to hear more ideas from you guys. I have a friend at church who he told me that he had an idea for how to fix this, but I didn't get a chance to talk to him between then and now. So hopefully he leaves a comment on here, or I talk to him next Sunday. but anyway, we're going to take a short break. So stay right there. Don't go anywhere. And then we're going to talk about how to fix baseball. So stay right there. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will win to who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a bigger shot at a payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So fixing this big problem that we've talked about. I feel like in doing research for this, I mean, I did everything from writing down just my thoughts without doing any research, and then doing some research. I even went to ChatGPT and all these AI places. I went to ChatGPT and I started asking it questions, and I was like, wait a minute, I need to check something. And I just said, when was the last time the Dodgers won the World Series? And I typed that in, and it said 2020. I was like, okay. And I left ChatGPT. I didn't go there anymore. But they are 5 years behind, apparently. But in doing all this research, here's what I got. Okay. So the salary cap. Every other major sports league has it. And what that would essentially do is that would say teams can only spend so much on their payroll. And that would, in effect, say, okay, we already have 2 or 3 superstars and we're paying them this much. We just can't sign anymore. And we already have these guys that are worth this much, and that's all we can have. And so then that opens them up to be signed by other teams, and evenly spreads these high worth players on paper. But what that really does is that just kind of lowers the ceiling that these players can get. Otani never would have gotten $700 million for his contract, and Yamamoto wouldn't have gotten as much as he did, and Juan Soto wouldn't have gotten as much as he did. And honestly, I'm in favor of these players making as much money as they can, because I think they're worth it, and I think that they not only deserve it because of their skill level, but also they bring in that much money. I mean, Otani brought in apparently $700 million in just 1 year on the Dodgers, made back the investment already. So I don't have a problem with that. The thing that's an issue is when one team is able to just sign all of them. But implementing a salary cap, that has a lot more repercussions than we think. And that would lower the amount, the ceiling of what a player could earn. But then also, I think that would incentivize teams to sign superstar level people and then work on the younger players that, they're the players that are under, 6 years of service. They're the pre your pre-arbitration period, or players who haven't made it to free agency yet or whatever. But then what that does is there's that middle ground of players who are maybe a bit older, are very talented and very good, but aren't superstar level. And those guys, I think, are going to hurt a lot. And they're going to see they'll still get signed, but they won't be able to accept deals that they're maybe worth. And they're going to have to accept much lower payroll options. And that doesn't even start to get into what does the minor league system look like, and what does this and that look like. And so if there was a salary cap, it would have to be so well thought out, and there'd have to be so many different restrictions and requirements to even start to make sense. And again, the players union is never going to agree to it, though over 2/3 of people, when asked, apparently want a salary cap. And even and then over half even said that if it meant losing the entire 2027 season because of a shutout, a strike, they still would want it. So they'd willingly give up the 2027 season in its entirety if it meant a salary cap would be implemented. I don't want any of 2027 to be lost. I don't think I would want that, especially knowing that the salary cap would have a lot of negative impacts, and teams like the Dodgers would still figure out ways to work around it. That's like trying to tax a billionaire. They're going to figure out ways around it. Whatever it may be, they're going to figure it out. So I don't know that a salary cap is the answer. But let's look at some other things that I think might be the answer. One, ban deferred payments. Just outright, okay, that's done. We're done. We're not doing that anymore. If you have somebody who's currently on a deferred payment, we will honor that contract, but it's done. You cannot make any more deals that include deferred payments. If you want a guy that's worth $70 million a year, you need to pay him $70 million a year. Likewise, signing bonuses, I think they can still exist, but I think they also need to be monitored. You need to say you cannot give them a signing bonus worth X percent of a yearly income or something like that. Because, if there's two teams that go, well, we'll offer you $50 million a year for, a 6-year contract, and the other team says the same thing, but then they go, ooh, but we'll give you a $45 million signing bonus as well. Who are you going to go to, Where the other team is like, we just gave all of, we just offered everything we had. We can't give you $45 extra million up front. That kind of hurts them as well. I don't think they should outlaw signing bonuses, but I do think they need to be like there needs to be some regulation on that. What absolutely needs to happen is a salary floor. A team needs to be required to spend X percent of their revenue into payroll. If you're in the baseball business, you need to be in the baseball business. So if an owner buys a baseball team going, well, this is an appreciative asset, and I just need to sit back, and the Pirates can lose all their games, and I just don't put anything into payroll, but it still prints money. It makes me a ton of money, and then someday if I want to sell it, I can for a huge profit. No, you're not in the business. You're in the baseball business. And if you're not in it to win it, then you need to sell and get out. And that needs to happen. And if that also comes with a series of rules that owners need to follow, and if they don't follow, then they have to sell, then do that. But then you're starting to look at things like, okay, well, the players aren't going to accept a deal that hurts them. The owners aren't going to accept a deal that overly hurts them either. Though one of the owners calling for a salary floor was the owner of the Rockies. So probably wouldn't be too hard to implement. And maybe that could be a way to form some sort of a salary cap. And you say, hey, listen, it's not a salary cap, but we're going to do this and this and this. But we're also going to do this and this and this. And if that also included things like, I don't know, you look at increased arbitration amounts or a minimum, some sort of pensions deal or something that benefits middle of the road players, and then minor league players, if you can figure out a way to help them out with this, then I think that would make it a lot more appealing to the players union. But I think a salary cap is probably a no-go. But I do think you can use some of these things like a salary floor to kind of get somewhere. The luxury tax is great for middle road teams like the Diamondbacks and the Mariners and the what was the team we said? The Rangers. They won't go very far. They won't hit it, or they won't go too far over it. Or if they do go over it, they'll come back right away, after a year or two, so they don't get increased penalties. But teams like the Dodgers and the Mets and the Yankees, they don't really care. It's just another expense, and they're fine paying it because they know they're going to make more money than than they would be saving. So the luxury tax, I think, needs to be far more penalizing. And I'm so financial consequences, initial consequences, I think can be maybe even lowered. Say, no, if this is your first or second offense, honestly, good job for you for putting in a little extra money. That's fine. But if this is your fifth, sixth, 10th year in a row of going over the luxury tax, over that number, then the financial consequences need to be compounding. I'm talking like, okay, it's double what it was the year before if you increase it anymore. And I think it needs to be a little bit more nuanced than that. It can't just be like, well, we can't just go from spending $300 million to $200 million in payroll, because especially you got contracts and stuff. But also that's kind of the turn to be like, listen, we don't know who we're going to want to sign next year. We need a little bit of wiggle room so that we don't go over this certain number again. And but it needs to be like even the Dodgers go, oof, okay, we're not going to do this 10 years in a row, or we're not going to increase our payroll every single year. We're going to have to take the foot off the pedal a little bit every once in a while. But honestly, I don't think it even needs to be financial completely. I think you just start removing draft picks. Like just full on just being like, okay, listen, first round draft pick gone. Like you guys wanted to sign 3 million, almost $1 billion players. That's fine. You're not getting draft picks for the next however long. Like it needs to be harsh, because the Dodgers aren't going to stop for any other reason. The Mets aren't going to stop for any other reason. The Yankees aren't. So you need to make it hurt. And that also, I think, needs to play a big part in saying, okay, these massive penalties that you're paying, these are going to these smaller market teams. And another thing that needs to be included, which I don't believe is at all right now, is that shared revenue needs to go to payroll, whether in its entirety or a very high percent, something. But the Pirates can't just take all that money and go, sweet, we made more money. No, that goes right back into payroll. You have to start increasing your payroll. And that, I mean, and that could even be like you have to spend X amount of your revenue plus whatever you're getting from revenue sharing, even more of that percent needs to go to payroll, something like that. But the thing about it, at the end of the day, is it really is every team's responsibility to play this game smart. The Brewers are not in a big market. They don't have a lot of money. They don't spend a lot of money, but they play the game right. They get talented players. They have a good farm. They have good scouts. They have good staff and coaches, and they're able to make the playoffs consistently. The Guardians, same thing. And you have these very talented teams that are making the playoffs, even though they aren't the Dodgers, you know? Now, are they making them as often? No, but they're making it and they're doing a good job. But I don't know. I'm trying trying to make it sound like, oh, it's not the Dodgers' fault. The Dodgers aren't ruining baseball. And the Dodgers aren't ruining baseball, but they are taking advantage of a kind of ruined system a little bit. So again, now listen, again, I'm saying I'm not putting blame on the Dodgers here. I think the Dodgers are playing the system wonderfully. They're doing a very good job. They're doing business very well. I'm not mad at Dave Roberts, even though I put his face on the thumbnail today. I think Dave Roberts is a fantastic human being and a fantastic coach and manager, and he's doing everything right. I think he's doing a wonderful job. He's just being dealt a hand that is unfair. He knows it's unfair, but what's he gonna do? He's doing the right thing, and so is everybody else on the Dodgers. I honestly don't have really anything against any one player or staff member of the Dodgers. I just it's just this it's just hard to watch every other team struggle at this game that the Dodgers are able to play so effortlessly. But we know that other teams in their situation, like the Yankees, like the Mets, like the Angels, are not really playing it right. So it's not a guarantee. Just ask the Mets, but it sure does help. Anyway, guys, we're going to go on one more little break, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about some interesting breaking news. Stay right there. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in a stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDON for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, let's talk about what was announced yesterday. Last night, the Gold Gloves were announced, and I kind of was right. Unfortunately, I kind of called it that Corbin Carroll, who was our only Diamondback listed as a finalist, would lose the Gold Glove to Fernando Tatis Jr. And I was right, unfortunately. I didn't want to be. I was really hoping it would happen, but honestly, I do think Tatis deserved the win. I think he I think he had the edge over Carroll. I think he had some more impressive highlight reel plays. I mean, Carroll absolutely had some as well, and I think he would have. I wouldn't have been surprised had he won normally, though I would have been surprised had he beat Tatis. Um, so there's that. This is also the first year in, I believe, 4 years that the Diamondbacks did not win a Gold Glove because we had We had Christian Walker, who won it 3 years in a row and helped us out a good deal. Let's see. We had Christian Walker in 22, Christian Walker and Gabby Moreno in 23, and Christian Walker in 2024. 2025 is our first year in that amount of time that we have not won a Gold Glove. We did not win one in 2020 or 2021. But before that, oh wow, we had gone 2015, 16, 17, 18, and 19. So we went 5 years in a row winning Gold Gloves. We didn't in 2014, 2012, and then before that we went quite a few years without any. So we had some pretty good defensive years. Particularly, that's thanks to our first baseman, which was Paul Goldschmidt, and then was Christian Walker. It was a big reason why we were so consistently getting Gold Gloves. We also had Zach Greinke win quite a few at pitcher, and then David Peralta in outfield, and Nick Ahmed at short had quite a few as well. So we've been a bit spoiled with those players this year. Our defense, I think, lacked in a lot of places. Hopefully we see some improvement there. I think Blaze Alexander is a very good potential Gold Glove winner next year if he's able to basically just play the way he was playing before, or at the end of the season. So that'd be exciting. And I think Corbin Carroll, if he continues to improve on his arm strength, I think he had one error all year, something like that. Like he plays it basically perfect. He just needs a little bit more, just a little bit more growth in that area. And I think he's a real candidate for next year. So that's a bit unfortunate, but that's okay. It's not the worst news we've had all weekend. But you guys, thank you so much for watching. I do want to say congratulations to the Dodgers players and staff. I like most of them. I don't have any problem with them. I don't have a problem with most Dodgers fans. So congratulations on that. It really was a very impressive series, a very impressive season. I just think it was also quite a bit unfair, but at the same time, there's no cheating. There was nothing that we know of. My brother jokes that someday we'll find out how the Dodgers were cheating this whole time. But until that happens, I'm going to assume no cheating is happening. And they're playing the game, and not just the game on the field, but the game off the field, the game of business and all that kind of stuff. They're doing it right. It's just summarize this whole episode. It's just there is some disparity between the teams like the Dodgers and teams that are not like the Dodgers. And I think that the MLB can do some things to help with that, because again, this is such a localized sport. There are so many teams, and there's going to be more teams soon, that it needs to be, every team needs to be able to compete. And that's not just the Dodgers' fault. There are teams that don't spend anything that needs to be fixed as well. That's just as much, if not bigger, of a problem. So anyway, guys, that's the show. Be sure to follow us on X and Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Diamondbacks. We're on YouTube as well as every other place you get podcasts. If you want to see more of me, you can find more of my YouTube channels and projects at my website, slackshack.tv. This is the part where usually I go and I talk about the Locked On MLB game night. But you guys, guess what? The World Series champion was crowned, and that was the end of that. I don't think I even double checked to see if there was something I was supposed to say at the end. So let me do that really quick. But this is just a really fun time for us to chat now, isn't it? All right, you guys. Well, that's all I got. So thank you so much for watching. And I will be here first thing tomorrow to talk more about baseball and why we love it so much and why it's the best sport in the world and why the Diamondbacks are the best team in that sport. So thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow.